Okay, in this video I'm going to show you how you can have a navigation menu which is partially hidden off the side of the screen, but when you put your mouse on it, it then flies out onto the screen. So it slides out onto the screen there. And with this navigation menu, as you scroll down, it's also fixed in that position as well. But the main thing is that it's this slide out effect for the navigation menu. So let's have a look at how that's done. So I'm just going to switch to a different page here in Muse, and this web page is from the video Parallax effects. So if you want to know how this was created, you need to watch that video called Parallax effects. But basically it is 4 rectangles all stacked up on top of each other, so just drawn with a rectangle tool and then given a different fill color, and those rectangles are just on one big long web page, and they represent actually different pages, if you like. They represent different pages, but all stacked on top of each other within one page. At the top of each one of these sections there is an anchor which has been added, and that's going to allow our navigation buttons to move down and select each one of these sections that we've created using these rectangles. So if you want to know how to put these anchors in, then you need to watch the video called Parallax Effect. Okay, for us for the moment we just need to create a navigation menu, so I'm going to use the widgets library and I'm going to create a vertical navigation menu. Okay, I'm just going to move it onto the place. Now I don't want it to be created using the top level pages, I want to make it manually. So I'm just going to come down and then create our 4 navigation buttons to go with the 4 sections, and then I'm going to name those as well. So I'm just going to call them section 1, in fact I'm going to call it section 01, section 02, section 03, and then the last one. Okay, and what I'm going to do as well is I'm just going to increase the size of the font as well so that you can see it nice and clearly. I'm going to close down the widgets library, come to the text panel window, and I'm just going to do a right align because I want the text to be right aligned. And then when I do that, you see that the text goes right up against the edge of the navigation menu, and I need a bit of space here. I don't want the text touching the edge there. So I'm going to come in and just select one of the individual buttons, close down the text panel window, and I'm going to open up the spacing panel window. Now I don't want this chain link on because that will change all of these 4 values at the same time. I just want to add some padding to the right hand side, so as I add that, what you'll see is that that text moves away. So I'm just going to put that around about 11. I'm going to come back to the text tool because I just need to create a little bit of space between the section and the 01, so I'm just going to do a couple of extra spaces there to pop that into place. And then I just need to place my navigation menu so it goes off the page. So I'm just going to click hold of it and you just drag it, now it's off the screen. Okay, so I'm going to put it up towards that top line, but I'm going to put it off the screen, and let's have a look at that navigation menu. So Command or Control Shift E to preview in a browser. Launches the browser. You can see it's not quite right in place there, so it doesn't match up what we've got there in Adobe Muse, but it's still off the screen, and of course it's got those rollover effects on it which you can change and control. If you were to go to the states panel window, you can change the normal, the rollover, and the mouse and the active states that we've got there. Let's take that off. Okay, one thing that I do need to do is that when I do Command Shift and E, there's my menu, but when I scroll, the menu disappears. It scrolls up off the top of the page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin it in place. Now you can do that by selecting the menu and then coming up here, and you'll see these 6 points of pins that you can have, and that fixes the menu in place, so when you scroll it doesn't move, it doesn't go up off the screen. So I'm going to pin it up in the top corner there, and then I might just need to have a little move it around a little bit just to get it in the right place where I want it to be. Now when I do Command Shift and E, you'll see it's perfectly in place and it looks like it does in Muse, and when we scroll through our different pages, our sections, you'll see that the menu stays in place. Okay, so let's just Command Q that. One thing I do need to do is I need to hyperlink these buttons, so I'm just going to go here and link section 1 button to section 1, so that will link to the anchor that is placed at the top of each of these rectangles, section 2 to section 2, and so forth until they are all hyperlinked. oops, accidentally created another button there, so let's just get rid of that one. So there we go, that needs to go to section 4. So now when I do Command Shift E and I click these buttons, they should then take me to my different sections and I can move about the page using the links. Okay, now we need to get the menu to slide out. But to do that, we need to know what this menu has been called by Adobe Muse. Because to get it to slide out, we need to hand write some code. Now, Muse is a program which is designed really so that you don't have to write any code, so that you can create web pages with no code. However, for us to create some effects that we may want on our pages, we will need to write our own code, and this is one of those particular effects where we need our own code. So in Muse, whenever you create a rectangle, or you create a text area, or a navigation, or you add an image, each part of that page, each element, is given a unique ID. So this rectangle has a unique ID, this menu has a unique ID, and we need to find out what the unique ID of that menu is, so that when we come to write our code, we can target this element on the page. So I'm going to do a Command Shift in E. That will preview it in Safari. I'm going to copy the address bar out of Safari and put it into Google Chrome. And it will show the page now in Google Chrome. I'm going to close down Safari in the background, and in Google Chrome you can go to the View menu and go to Developer and show Developer Tools. Now with the Developer Tools, if you pick up the little magnifying glass, you can go around different elements of your page and it will tell you what those different elements are called, what their ID is. So when I come here to the navigation menu, it only picks up individual elements of the menu, not the whole menu all in one go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on one element, it will get me to the right place in the code. I then simply hover my mouse over this different lines of code until I see over here on the left hand side all of the boxes highlighted together at once. Then I know I've got the whole navigation menu. So here I've only got the top box highlighted. Well, that's no good to me, I need the whole 4 boxes highlighted. So as I move my mouse over, you'll see this one indicates that all 4 boxes are highlighted. In other words, this is picking up the whole navigation menu. And we can see here that this menu is actually called Menu U. So I'm just going to write this down with a piece of paper and pen. So Menu U197. Okay, so that's the code that I need to identify this navigation menu. So I'm finished with Google Chrome, and now I need to write my own code. So to write code in Adobe Muse, you have to go to the Page menu and then come down to Page Properties. Now by default, this dialog box will come up out on the Layout tab. We need to switch to Metadata, and it's here that we have access to writing code within the head tags of our HTML page. And it's inside the head tags that we can write instructions that control how things appear or work on our pages. And I want to write some instructions that tell this menu that when people hover over it, it's to come out onto the page. So to do that, I'm going to write some CSS. So I need to write some style tags first. So I'm just going to write my opening style tag, do a couple of returns, and then write my closing style tag. In between those tags, I can now write the CSS rules for targeting this navigation menu. So I'm going to type in hash, and then I need to have menu U197. So that is the unique code that was given by Adobe Muse to identify the menu. So we need to use it when we're writing out our rules. And then I'm going to write the code that I want. I want a transition. So we're going to use a CSS3 property, which is the transition CSS3 property. And I'm going to set it so that everything changes 0.2 seconds, and I want it to work in a manner of ease. So 0.2 seconds, that's how long it's going to take for it to transition out from being on off the screen to on the screen. All means that everything that I write later on is going to be affected. In other words, it could be the hover state, it could be the movement of the navigation menu. I could change that, for example, to say left as well, but we'll just stick with it as all for the moment. and then I'm just going to close off that. Okay, now what I need to do is I need to write another little bit of code, so another hashtag, and again menu U197, but this time I'm going to do a colon and hover. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say that when people hover their mouse over that element on our page, I want the left position to go to 0 pixels, and then I'm going to close that off. So what's going to happen here is that when we hover over, this will move from its current position to being 0 pixels, which means this left hand edge will come and sit right on the edge of the page here at 0 pixels, and it will do that. It will transition, so it won't just jump, it will slide into that position, and it will take 0.2 seconds, and it will use this kind of easing function that we've put in here. So the way to test this is to give it a go. So I'm going to click OK. So if I select my navigation menu at the moment, what you'll see is that its left position is currently -238. Well, we've just told it that on mouse over, when it gets hovered over, it's to go to 0. So in other words, it should slide in on the page. Control Shift and E to preview in a browser, and when we put our mouse over that element, you can see that it comes in onto the page. Now it's jumping in at the moment, whereas I expected it to transition. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a Command and C to copy that and just see what it does in Google Chrome, because different browsers respond in different ways to CSS3, and that's what we were writing, we were writing some CSS3 code. So let me just paste it in. Let's go and grab it again, Command C and Command V. So it jumps in there as well. Okay, so we need to go back to our code and have a quick look and find out what's going on. So I'm going to go back to page properties, and then I'm going to come back in here, and I think what I might do is I might write a WebKit rule. Now WebKit, and then copy this, and I need to make sure that I've got my colons at the end of these as well, my semicolons at the end. So I'm going to copy all of this and put it in here. WebKit is a particular set of criteria that is written for some browsers, such as Google Chrome and Safari. So sometimes you need this prefix in place in order for the CSS3 property transition to work in particular browsers. So now let's give it a go, and I know why it wasn't working, because you couldn't spell transition. So let that be a lesson to you. Make sure that you spell things correctly. So let's click OK. Let's do a Command Shift and E. Now let's have a look. Okay, so that's better. Now it's sliding out rather than jumping out. Okay, and we can go back to page properties, and I think we might slow that down. So let's just have a look at what happens when we put it down to 0.5, and let's do both of these elements here. So I think the main reason why it wasn't working earlier was because I'd obviously spelled transition wrong, missed out the R. But that's a common thing that happens in code. So whenever you're writing code in manually, you do have to check it and double check it that you haven't made any kind of typing errors. So now that I've slowed it down, let's have a look again at how this works. Okay, so that's much slower. See, that's a much slower response, and you can see there that it does slide out, so it's no longer jumping out. And of course, when we click on these, it goes to our different sections, and the menu stays in place because we fixed it. And that's how you can get a menu to slide out from the side of the page. It does involve writing some code, and of course it involves writing that code accurately as well.